same size, just so that when they cook and can, but they don't have to, you know, but anyway, you figure out how big they have to be, but you don't want them to be over the head space, so this one's too long, so I wouldn't be able to use them here unless I put them sideways. I'd have to eat it while it went, and that's okay to do.
You got it in from the garden.
Yes, if you get it from the garden. I'm going to put some water down. So the other thing to do is once you put all these in here, say I'm going to hot pack or cold pack, put all my little green beans around in there. It's important to take a plastic knife or this little tool. See, this is just one of those little things that amuses me. And you push it around the edge of the jar, and it lets the air bubbles come up. You can see if you put a plastic knife around the edge of a jar, if you filled it with water, the air bubbles are going to come up. And it's going to let you put more hot water in and make sure you have a better seal and a better fill on your jars. Hot water, hot. If you put cold water in a hot thing, what's going to happen?
Right.
It's all going to suck out of your jar, and you're going to pick up your jar, and you're going to call me and say, I have green beans, but there's no water in the jar. And I'm going to say, but your water wasn't hot when you put it in the canner. And you're going to say, it was. I'm going to say, no, it can't be. So that's that one. And you want your little jar lifter. So this is just a little setup, and again, you get this, use them. You can use them for tamales if you want to cook tamales later on too. So that's your wood. This is the water preserving meat. This is preserving meat. This is the water bath canner. And you have to use everything that's high acid and not pressure canned in here. Does anybody have any questions about using this? It's real important. Your jellies, your pickled items, anything with a lot of alcohol here. Now what about tomatoes? Do I use tomatoes in here or a canner with a little petcock on it?
I use a canner because
you have to use a canner for tomatoes. Unless you're going to acidify them. And that's why the canning tomato recipes, that's very important. Tomatoes used to be more acidic. We used to do tomatoes in here, but we don't do them anymore. Because of the risk of botulism, we encourage you to put a tablespoon of vinegar or lemon juice in every quart of tomatoes you can to raise the acidity level so you know it has the right acidity level. If you mix anything together for salsas or spaghetti sauce, you have to use a pressure canner, because of the acid levels. And it's really important when you're using recipes that you use a recipe that is approved. We went through a time where we as agents, because you know I'm early retirement may come and I'm excited, so I've been doing this a couple years. We've gone through all kinds of recommendations. People used to bring us the recipes and we used to match it with a recipe and say, oh, this is close enough, you can use this. But now we know because of the risk of foodborne illness that we can't do that. You need to find a recipe that's already done. Now if you have every once in a while Marilyn and I'll get calls, I have a salsa and I think it's award-winning and I want to sell it. Well then you have to go to a better process class in College Station. You have to have your recipe tested for acidity levels. And all that kind of stuff has to go on before you can sell it or do anything with it. So for home consumption, you need to use a recipe that's approved. So if you're using a recipe that's been handed down for many years, you need to stop and look online or look at some of the references and see if you can find a recipe that will.
Questions? For those of us who are too analytically minded, what kind of pH are you looking for?
I knew you were going to ask me that. 4 to 7. 4 to 7 is where bacteria likes really well, so you're going to have it under 4.
Under 4.
Now, don't go get litmus paper and test it, because remember, every jar is going to be different, and that's why you have to have some. I knew he was going to write down, because he's going to run and get some litmus paper. No, find a recipe. Now, this is so easy to preserve. If somebody calls me, this is the book I use. This, if you Google, if you're a Googler, Google Home Food Preservation, and it's going to bring up a National Home Food Preservation Center with the University of Georgia. They're the ones in the nation who have the whole contract and the whole authority by USDA to be the ones who come up with the recipes. If you look for an extension service recipe and it's after 2004, you're okay to use it. If it's before, you know, like some of us have old publications around. If it's 2004 before, get rid of it. But if it's after that, you can use it. The other thing is to look at the Ball books and Tur books. They have really good, because that's their business. So you can use these books. Of course, you want to make sure when you check the copyright or the information front, it's after 2004. And you can find these at any of the bookstores or discount chains or online or any of those. I did give you an order form for this one. Like I said, this is the one I use. If I use recipes, it's where I get it from. If you go online and do the University of Georgia or the National Center for Home Food Preservation, it's going to give you pull downs where you can print most of the recipes and things off here and you don't have to buy it. So most of these handouts I pulled from you are from the University of Georgia. I just pulled the handouts for you. In Texas, we don't even make the handouts anymore. We use University of Georgia's.
And that's published by the University of Georgia, University of Georgia Press.
And you'll have, I think it's 18. And you can do it online or you can buy it. So however you want it. I'm not selling the book. I'm just saying this is the single best reference that we have. And if you call me, this is where I go first. So easy to preserve.
What's the date?
I'll put sherry on it, and we may have them inside in a couple of weeks.
This is the old one. This is my carry around one because you know what happens if I bring my new one out somewhere. So this is the 1999 one, I think. This is the carry around one.
You don't want this one.
It was the same thing, it's just a different thing. And what I've done is I look at the recipes here and then I check the new book to make sure there's not been any changes. Or I go online to make sure there's not been any changes. There's a orange jelly recipe over here that uses orange juice concentrate that we've given you if you want to do orange jelly. You got the pepper recipes over here. Let's talk a minute about freezing. Canning is very expensive to get into if you're not going to do it forever because the jars are not cheap. If you have a benefactor who's going to give you the jars, but if you have to go buy the jars as a startup and the canner, that's not a cheap thing. The other thing I need to remind you is to check your stove and see if your stove can even handle a pressure canner. Glass top stoves can't handle this. Some of the electric stoves with the small burners or the weight restrictions can't handle the volume of stuff in it. So you need to check your stove to see what your stove will handle and what your stove will permit. And if you're buying a new stove, you need to think about that when you buy. We bought stuff for the office and we didn't get a glass top because I can't water bath my
Is that because of
bathtub.
the weight?
The weight and the burner size and how far those distances are. Because that gets pretty heavy and hot. And so it's going to affect the other burners and what's underneath the stove. So check your stove to make sure that you can handle it. Some of the big pressure canners, I have a pressure canner in my garage somebody gave me. It's truly, it's huge. There's no way a stove, if I'm going to use it, I'm going to have to do some kind of campfire in the back. Because the stoves won't handle it anymore.
Outdoor kitchen.
I have to do an outdoor kitchen. So make sure you know what your equipment is and know what you have at home if you're going to get into that. Make sure that you check your pressure canners. The Extension Services offer pressure canner testing. We've ordered the testing device. It should be in a couple weeks. Pressure canner gauges need to be checked every year, every other year at least, because the accuracy of that gauge is what's going to depend on the safety of your food. So if the gauge is off 2 or 3 pounds, then the safety of your food can be in question. So you want to make sure you check the little gauge, and we can check this for you at the Extension office. No charge. We just have to get our little canner tester in. We've changed how we do that in the last couple of years. We've ordered new material. You check the seal and the gasket. Those should be soft and pliable, not brittle and hard. And you run a pipe cleaner through the little petcock, or the little place where the air comes in and out. You run a pipe cleaner through that to clean it every time you use it to make sure there's no buildup. Because if it's buildup and air can't get out of it, you run the risk of the thing exploding. I will tell you that pressure canners can be scary if you've never used them before. The thing to remember about them is to follow the directions. And when it comes up to temperature, you start timing it. When the little thing, you watch the dial, make sure your dial's at the right pressure. You time it, and then you turn it off and you leave it alone. You don't put it under running water to get the temperature down so you can open it, and you don't try to open it while the steam. You have to leave it alone. So you have to time your canning so that you can get some jars done, wait a while and put other jars in. You can't get a whole bunch ready if they won't fit in your canner at one time. That's some restrictions. And you want to can foods that are the best quality foods. And so we say the same day it's picked, it should go in the freezer or it should go in the can. That's why you have the beauty of a home garden. You can pick it and put it in a can and do it all in one day. Guys have any questions about that? Let's talk a minute about freezing.
Go back to canning. Shelf life.
I was told, because we had this training the other day, I was told that I'm supposed to remind everybody that the shelf life of home canned food is supposed to be 1 year.
And in reality,
don't tell me. Don't tell me if you find it under Grandma's bread. So if you've pressure canned it the right way, if you've stored it in a cool, dark place, the quality of the food should be okay. But we can only recommend that you keep it for a year. Do you want to keep it 3 or 4 years? No, you want to have some rotation. And that's another one of those first in, first out. So if it's last year's stuff, use it first and use